advantage of the opportunity. But right now is about right now.
The Plan B, Ohio State Buckeyes.
Give everything you got in your heart to this place.
Hello, welcome back to Rushing the Field, presented by Xfinity. He's Joshua Perry. I'm Nicole Auerbach, and Joshua, no time for pleasantries. We've got so much to discuss this week.
A lot of things happen. We're at the midway point, so there's a discussion there, but coaching carousel gonna be crazy. One of the big ones opened, and I'm certain it's not gonna be the last big one to open.
It's the bluest of blue bloods, Penn State. You know, our friend Audrey Snyder, who does a great job covering Penn State for Substack, it's Inside the Lions. She made this point to me earlier this week. This job has not opened under good circumstances, like without sanctions, without NCAA stuff, post-scandal life, since the 60s. So this is what's going to be really interesting about how attractive Penn State is, who becomes the next head coach. But before we get there, Joshua, last time you and I podcasted, it felt like the end for James Franklin. We talked about why that was, why it felt untenable, why it was toxic between that fan base and him, the 10 plus years of experiences, but also kind of like the same movie playing over and over for each year. And then just the bottom falling out within a 15-day span this season. I want to get your thoughts, though, on Sunday when you found out that Penn State had actually made the change, that Pat Kraft had decided to fire James Franklin.
So it was one of those, it was a matter of when and not if. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you can't lose those 3 games in a row. That's why he got fired. And I think that's the reason why he got fired when he did. But I think when you look at it in totality, they were like, this guy did a great job of bringing us back to a place where we're competitive every year. But we are certain now that he can't win us a championship. That was my initial reaction to this firing, was like, it was a commentary on his ability to take them to the highest heights at Penn State. There is a realistic world where they could have had a really bad year, even with that roster this year, and made changes in the offseason, and James Franklin could have had him back at 10 wins next year. I think a lot of us would believe in his ability to do that. The idea that he had this team and they put that investment into the coaching staff, and you have these results, was everything that people needed to see to say that he's not the guy to get us over the top. It's a very interesting thing. I've got a lot of thoughts on like the ripple effects of what all this means. But to me, that was the biggest thing that stood out, was like, he can't do it. We were waiting to see if he could. And it became very clear that it just wasn't going to be a possibility for him at Penn State.
I'm with you completely on the timing. The timing is because it bottomed out. Because when you watched the game against Northwestern, that team was uninterested in playing football.
Right,
Afterwards,
20-point favorites in 2 games and lost
after
both,
a bad loss to UCLA.
Yes.
Like, there was no bounce back. There was no get right. And then Drew Aller goes down. And, the post game was very obvious, I felt. James Franklin was given an opportunity to like defend himself, fight for the program, and it was out of him, right? Like, everyone knew. And that's why it had to be done in the midseason. But I think your overall point is completely spot on. I think you are giving a coach every possible resource that they need, right? So if he says, hey, we need to go out and get Jim Knowles, we need to spend, we need to do this, we need to spend to get receivers, we need to spend money to keep our running backs and do all of these things, then you run out of reasons. You run out of excuses when it doesn't work. And that's ultimately what happened here. This team was nowhere near like the sum of its parts, nowhere near what it was last year when it had a lot of these same pieces. And it became very obvious, I think, to your point, that they were not going to break through. They had reached their ceiling under James Franklin. And Pat Kraft talked about it this week that, he expects them to win a national championship. He had a lot of interesting things to say. So let's just listen to the Penn State athletic director this week about firing James Franklin.
Our next coach will be someone who embodies everything Penn State stands for: integrity, accountability, toughness, humility, and an elite motivator. We'll find a coach who can achieve excellence at the highest level, doing it with confidence and conviction. Recruiting will always be a pillar here. We want someone who will attract elite talent, retain players in the NIL era, and make Penn State a destination. This is also about the modern era of college football. Our next coach needs to be able to maximize elite level resources, attack the transfer portal, and develop at the highest level. This person has to fit Penn State. They need to represent the toughness, the blue-collar work ethic, and the class that defines this institution. We want someone who honors our tradition but isn't afraid to evolve, someone who understands the weight of we are and leads us forward with a vision of championships. The right coach will rebuild the unity and pride that defines this historic program. And they will ignite this fan base around a shared belief that we're capable of greatness and we're going to do it the right way. And we are the best program in the country. We have made significant investments in this program. We compete in the best conference in the country. And we have the best fans and alums in the country. With a renovated stadium on the horizon, I have nothing but confidence in our future and in our ability to attract an elite leader for our Penn State football program.
So when I'm listening to that, I'm hearing the next coach needs to win a national championship, needs to win Big Ten championships and national championships. And I thought there were some interesting parts of there. The idea of maximizing your resources and your elite talent, because that's ultimately what it was, right? Like Penn State always had great rosters. There have been different moments at different times, but when Penn State would always come up short against the Ohio States and the Michigans, even as Michigan figured it out, how to close their gap with Ohio State, that was always glaring. I always think back to, I think it was 2018 when James Franklin said that like they were really good, but not elite, and that there was a difference between them and Ohio State, and they were trying to close it. That was a long time ago now. And you're in this world where it's the same thing happening every single year. And the best part was that you could always say, well, they always took care of business against teams that they should. And then they stopped doing that. So what I hear from Pat Kraft, though, is that they do expect to not just compete for, but win national championships. Like it's not a once in a blue moon thing. Making the playoff is not going to be enough. Like this is a team that expects to be basically what Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia, what those teams are year in and year out, where you don't rebuild, you just reload, you're competitive for the best coaches in the country, and you're spending whatever it needs on the roster as well.
So before I get into that, because I totally agree, I want to go back to James Franklin for a sec, because I feel like he's been a guy that's been an easy target because maybe he's not the most likable coach, but what he did at Penn State and at the time that he took over that program. So Bill O'Brien comes in and kind of like gets it stable, but he's not there for a while. And there's still a pretty big mess there. And James Franklin comes in and he rebuilds that thing. And half of his seasons there, he won over 10 games. He won over 100 games total as a coach at Penn State. Like, there's a lot of great there. And I think there's part of this conversation where you need certain people at certain times in programs. And he is a really good builder. He did it at Vanderbilt, had them respectable. And then he goes to Penn State and gets them to a place where they're now expecting to win championships on a regular basis. So there's a lot of credit there. But to your point, like, he couldn't get it done. And now you're in the next coach better win it. And I posted a video to my social media before this press conference even happened, because to me, when you spend the type of money that they're getting ready to spend on that buyout, and they're getting ready to spend on the new staff, and they're getting ready to spend on all the transitional costs and NIL and everything, you have to win a championship when the average year for the last coach was double-digit wins, right? Like, that's what you have to do.
That's the floor.
And it's a really narrow scope of success. And I can tell you, as somebody who played in a program like that and watches them intently every weekend, it is a miserable way to have to live. It's miserable. Famously, or maybe not so famously, when I was at Ohio State, we won 50 games and only lost 4 in a 4-year span. My freshman year, we couldn't play in the postseason because we had sanctions. But if you think about the next 3 years, we only lost 3 games, and we played in 2 Big Ten championships, only won one of them, and won 1 title, only losing 4 games in a 4-year span. Like, that's the scope that they're living in now. Like, the margins are extremely narrow, and it's a very difficult thing to get done. I know we're going to talk about some of the names here, but I just wanted to throw out, with that context, this question to you, because I think it's a very intriguing one. In the landscape of the Big Ten and in college football as a whole, where do you rank the Penn State job? Because I've given a lot of thought to it, and I think the answers are an interesting range here.
So I think it is one of the best jobs in the country. The resources will be there. I know we talk about alignment a lot in college sports. This was one of the things that James Franklin really harped on coming into this season, was that they finally have it, right? Like, the president, the athletic director, and the head coach knew what it was going to take for football from a resource standpoint. So again, I think you have all of that. You can hear it in Pat Kraft's emotion. He sounds like a football coach, like he is a football coach's best friend as an AD. So you're going to have all of that. It's remote. I don't know that every coach realizes that all the time until you go and play at Penn State, but 3 hours
Well,
from Pittsburgh,
they
3
could
hours
just
from Philly.
listen to James Franklin talk about having to fly to the West Coast and understand
The runway.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
and there are more flights. There's directs to Chicago and Detroit
Sure.
and a bunch of places now, but it's hard. That part is part of this. You are in a giant fishbowl. And I know a lot of these jobs are like that.
Right.
But this is a small town. Like,
Mhm.
that's where I don't know that everyone who has not been to Penn State or been there during the last few years, I would say the last like 5 to 7 with James Franklin, I don't know if you understood how uncomfortable that is and
Yeah.
was, especially even going 10-2. Like that, everyone, the fan base, I think, knew, with those seasons, or 11-2 or whatever, that they weren't going to make a coaching change, but people weren't happy. And it's a small town where you feel it all the time. So those are all factors. But yeah, I mean, I think the pedigree, the tradition, the whiteout, we talk about how amazing it is, the fan
Yep.
base, huge alumni base, like all of that is there. But I do wonder with some of the coaches who have already been attached, right, on all these candidate lists that we're seeing everywhere, if they've got a better thing where they are because of the level of expectation that they're going to be walking into. There was a quote from Ryan Day this week that
Mhm.
you and I both talked about offline. And he was asked about James Franklin. I mean, every coach was this week, right? The candidates were, but then other coaches were just sort of about like the midseason firing and all that he had done. And Ryan Day was like, this is what these jobs are. Like, he, of all people, understood
Yep.
that last year with what happened after they lost to
Yep.
Michigan in that 3-week period. So you know what you're walking into, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. And I think that for some of the coaches, let's just start talking about them that we're hearing
Real
names,
quick.
right? Matt Rhule.
Real quick.
Oh, you got something? Yeah.
Yeah, let's play a game. Let's play a game real
Okay.
quick. Penn State, better job, worse job than Ohio State?
Worst job.
Okay, Michigan.
Worst job. So
USC.
third, I think, in the Big Ten. USC, better.
Okay, Oregon.
Man, that's like, this is a question about resources versus tradition.
Right?
I say better.
And the reason I brought USC in there is, like, LA is crazy with all the different everything going on there, but they have money and they also have the tradition there, right? And then you start to go through like UGA, Bama, LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida. Do you throw Miami and Florida State in there, right? Like, it's one of those
Penn
things
State's
that I've
better
been thinking about.
Yeah,
Is
but
it?
Penn State's
I
better
mean,
than
a good what?
better than Florida State. Yes.
Is it?
Better than the ACC jobs.
You
Yes.
live in
Oh,
Florida.
yeah.
You're recruiting Florida. The kids are right there.
Yeah, but you're in the Big
Miami,
Ten.
the kids are
Your
right
money.
there.
The resources are so different. You're not taking an ACC job
there's
over Penn State.
It's easier to get the kids, and you have a direct path to the playoffs still.
You do have a better path. But
it's
but
the
Penn State,
whole
Penn State
conversation
should
about
be there
like
every year.
I agree, but I feel like it's just it's like threading a needle. It's a very narrow thing that's trying to be achieved here. And the more I think about it, I'm like, there's so much pressure to get this thing perfect because there are a million ways it can go wrong. That's my only thing
listen,
just watching it.
I agree. And that's where I want to start when we talk about some of those candidates. first of all, it's going to be like an uncomfortable second half of the year for Matt Rhule and Curt Cignetti, regardless. I mean, for Cignetti, for any job that opens, especially when more
he doesn't care though. That's the best part about him.
No, he doesn't.
He did an interview with Joel Klatt on his podcast. Joel's podcast is very good over there at Fox. But Joel asked him, "How you doing?" And he's like, "I'm just trying to find a way to get a couple of first down so I could kick a field goal." Right? Like that was his answer. And it's just, he doesn't care.
He's in his meetings. He's watching. Yes. He's a film junkie. He's watching everybody play and trying to steal some red zone plays or whatever it might be. But let's start with Matt Rhule because he is super close personally with Pat Kraft. They're besties. Their wives are very, very close. They both have beach houses in Cape May, New Jersey, the greatest place in the world, which is where I got married. Good. And you like Cape May, New Jersey.
Been there one time. I'm planning to go back.
Great. We can hang out with the Rules and the Crafts next time when we're all down there. But they've been close since they worked together at Temple. That's part of it. Matt Rhule is a great coach, great college coach, program guy, the way you want to win, stylistically, really good at hiring. He has done the rebuilds, right? At Temple, Baylor, he inherited right after a scandal. And now he's doing his thing at Nebraska, where they are taking a step in year 3. We'll get to my midseason CFP predictions, but you might see a Nebraska logo on that bracket with the path that they have the rest of the season. So I think this name is very interesting because it's his ties to State College, the area. He talked about it this week and was like effusive in his love for the place and for meeting his wife there, how much he loves Pat Kraft. Like Nebraska fans who are worried about him leaving focused on all of that. Everyone else focused on him saying like he loves living in Lincoln and loves it there and all of this. So I thought he actually answered it pretty well because he gave, it was honest. I think it would have been like insincere if he said, I don't love State College or like I don't have this attachment to Penn State. But to me, Nebraska I would stay at Nebraska. And I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up staying at Nebraska because this is a place where if you go 10-2, they love you. That's awesome. You're making the playoff. That is huge. These are huge steps back to relevance and national prominence for Nebraska, which has been through it. They went through the 9-4 isn't good enough. Let's get rid of Bo Pelini and bottoming out of the program. Yep. And now, sure. I mean, if Nebraska loses a game, the world is ending like it is at every major program. But the big scale stuff, where are we in college football? Are we moving in the right direction? Are we competing, contending? They appreciate that. They understand that. And you would be now going to a place where you have to work with your best friend, which I don't know if I would want to do. Mm-mm. B, your best friend might have to fire you if you don't win a national championship, which is
or you get your best friend fired too, by the way.
And your best friend could get fired if you don't win a national championship. And if you go 10-2, that's what just got the last guy fired. Yep. So that's what I think is really difficult when I look at the Matt Rhule situation. And Cignetti reminds me of that too, because the quality of life. Yes. You are in Indiana. This is the losingest program in college football history. You have already done a lot of things for the very first time. They are currently ranked higher in the AP poll than they have ever been ranked in the history of Indiana football. You have a clear path to the college football playoff for a second straight year. You look like a national title contender. They will build a statue of you. And also, by the way, they were the program that gave you a chance to be a head coach in your 60s of a power conference program. That, to me, is something that you potentially just stay for. I think if you were 30 and you get that job or 35 and you get that job, you're like, all right, I got to be an SEC head coach. I got to keep climbing. I don't know if you have to keep climbing if you're Curt Cignetti. And again, they could have a year where they go 8-4, 7-5.
They could go 5-7.
And everyone's fine. They're like, all right, whatever. We trust you, Sig. Like missed on a couple guys in the portal this year. It's okay. So this is why like these two names are going to remain kind of attached. These coaches are going to, be on all these lists, especially for Penn State. I get it. But I just think we need to explain the context of what their situations are right now in case they are not the next Penn State head coach, which I don't think it's a slam dunk for Rhule. I think Cignetti, as we sit here October 16th, I wouldn't be shocked if he is a lifer at Penn State. At Indiana, if Curt Cignetti is a lifer at Indiana, got to be clear there. But that's just where I am, Joshua, and I might be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong. This is the very beginning stages of a coaching search. But these things are really difficult. And I think that the Penn State level of expectation that you have explained so well is really, really important when you're talking about someone leaving a good spot or a good situation to jump into that fishbowl, that unique challenge of it's got to be a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, the expectations are crazy, right? But like, you get into college coaching because you're a crazy person anyway. So I think those guys, like, if they're going to talk themselves into it, that's going to be part of the thing that they embrace. Going back to Matt Rhule, I agree with all the personal things. And oh, by the way, he is very aware of what just happened to Scott Frost, who played at Nebraska. And I think there's this thing, and I joke about it. If I ever got into coaching, I'm never becoming the head coach at Ohio State. Like, coaches get hired to get fired, and then you're disenfranchised with your alma mater, and that's got to be a tough way to be. So I think about that. The other thing too, just on the Penn State side of this, and part of this is where Matt Rhule is coached, right? Like, this is not an indictment on him. I think he's a phenomenal ball coach. He's 2-23 versus top 25, and he's 0-11 versus the top 10. And that was the problem with the last coach. And again, I get it. He's coaching at different places that are disadvantaged compared to Penn State, but you have to be able to like make a little bit of a leap there to say that, this guy who has not done well against ranked teams is going to be a guy who can win you a title. He's a builder. You mentioned the builder thing. Go ahead.
I want to jump in on that because I think it's very likely that the next coach that Penn State hires has some blemishes on their resume, right?
No
or
doubt.
like their overall record may not be super impressive. It may not look anywhere near like what James Franklin overall record is at Penn State as he leaves, but that's not the point. Again, I think you're going to swing for the fences, and you obviously want a big name and you want a slam dunk hire. But the point was change. The point was like, we are too familiar with James Franklin. It has been too long, and all the warts are there, and we're running up against them every single year. So like, that's one thing that I think a lot of people, a lot of national folks are fixating on. They're like, they're not going to get a better coach than James Franklin. It's just about having someone different. It's about a clean slate. And so
I get it.
That's what I think about.
You want to win championships. So like, a different coach has to be a better coach too.
Agree. But I'm saying, like, coming in, the record may not be better.
No, I totally agree with that.
What I'm saying?
Well, I looked this whole thing up. There are only 10 coaches in Power 4 coming into the year that were 500 or above versus ranked teams. So, by the way, there ain't a lot of guys who are much better than what you just left. It's the whole thing of why I think this is so interesting. Anyway, I'm going on and on about this. But that, there's the Matt Rhule side of it. You mentioned Cignetti, and there are not a lot of negatives to trying to hire him. But he's an older guy. So you ask the question, how long do we think we're actually going to get him, which is a legitimate one for Penn State. And I'm with you. If I'm Sig, I'm staying around, not just because of the expectations. They paid this man 10 games in to last year, gave him a raise, $8 million a year, whatever the number was, plus $1 million retention bonus, up from $4.5 million a year. And oh, by the way, here's $11 million to go hire a staff. And I think Ohio State staff pool is $11.2 million. Like, we're going to do facilities for you. We're going to get NIL together. They are invested. And if I'm him, that's all I need to hear is like, if you guys put the money behind this, I know I'm a good ball coach. I'll be here and I'll win. And
they'll get to the playoff every year. That path is obvious for them and for being in the Big Ten. 11-1, 10-2. We're used to it. And a lot of those donors who are used to donating to basketball, donating to football, everyone's in, like, to your point about the resources. And by the way, I don't think that's going to be his final salary. I think he's going to get another extension, another raise, and it's going to be among the best in the country.
I'd do it tomorrow. I would do it tomorrow. And guess what? Their boosters have probably been waiting for a chance to give money to football like this. So, like, it's
basketball has been down. So it's like, of course, here's a great opportunity for someone who could be nationally competitive.
Let me ask you this last thing before we get going, and I'm going to kind of spoil the next segment, but Nebraska and Indiana are both projected playoff teams. Timeline of Penn State if they want to hire either one of these coaches.
This is a really good question. I am so interested to see how this plays out, because not just Penn State being open, but like, this carousel is going to be insane. There's already a lot of power conference jobs open. We're expecting more to open in the SEC, more to open potentially in the Big Ten at least as well. So there's going to be domino effects. especially if like Lane Kiffin gets one of these jobs that reopens another SEC job. But this is going to be a fascinating question that we don't know the answer to yet, because the first year that we had the transfer portal and there were dates, it was like early December. So that was a year that like a lot of people made midseason changes and they tried to hire coaches before the portal opened so that they could be active and get players. This year, the portal is moving back. It's moving to January 2nd. At that point, we'll have gone through the New Year's Day games. There will be 4 teams that are still playing in the college football playoff. And by the way, like everyone who's playing in a quarterfinal, like that's still a crazy turnaround if you're trying to make a change like the next day and hire somebody who's playing. But it's a great point, because I would think that if you're coaching in the playoff, you're out. You're not a candidate. You're not an option unless you're going to make a change really late after the portal. By the way, there's now only one window.
I know. And then you've got the early signing period for high school. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
So that could take some of these coaches out of contention, depending on how far they get in the college football playoff. Be interested to see what that means for coordinators and coaches too, because we've seen some places like let someone do double duty and stay through a playoff run. That playoff run is a lot longer now than it used to be. Right. So how does that play in? So it's a great question. Really good question. We will see. And we'll talk about this, by the way, down the stretch, because I think it's really, really important. Let's show the YouTube audience what my midseason college football playoff bracket looks like. For those that are listening, I'll give you my top 4 seeds to start. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Miami. Number 3, Indiana. Number 4, Texas A&M. Number 5, Texas Tech. So those are you got my champions in there. So then we've got, at large, obviously Indiana was 1, Oregon at 6, Alabama at 7, Ole Miss at 8, Notre Dame I'm projecting them to win out. Number 9. So they would actually be just on the outside of hosting a game. Number 10, Georgia Tech, a second team from the ACC. Last at large team in Nebraska at number 11. And then my group of 6 champion, highest ranked group of 5 or group of 6 champion, USF, who, by the way, has a great collection of wins so far this season. So I have them winning the American and getting that spot. Couple interesting things that I decided to do just to, put some conversation out there, mess with people a little bit. So I've got Ohio State winning it all. Congratulations to your Buckeyes, Joshua. They have my hypothetical national champions. I've got them playing Miami in the championship game, which, like, those are the 2 teams that I think I've felt best about since week 1 all the way through. We talk about the line play that Miami has on both sides, how well Carson Beck's been playing, Malachi Toney. There's a lot to like about Miami. So I've got them making it all the way through to the championship game, and Ohio State winning it with that defense, with like an offense that has grown and will continue to grow and get more explosive at times. Like, kind of they've been playing with their food a little bit to figure out, hey, what do we want to work on in games? They'll, kind of hit that gas pedal in the playoffs. They'll be rested for it. My final 4, though, is Ohio State playing Texas Tech and Indiana playing Miami. If this happens, or some combination of
will
this,
go crazy.
Paul Feinbaum will go insane.
Yeah.
We will hear from everyone who's ever called into that show. The SEC, by the way, goes 3 straight years without winning a national championship, but isn't even in the Final Four, isn't even in the semifinals. I mean, it will be just like a major cause of concern, self-introspection. We're going to have like an existential crisis for the SEC this offseason if this happens. So, Joshua, you did not put pen to paper. You did not redo your picks. So does that mean you're sticking with Penn State as a national champion for your preseason picks?
Nicole, please do not belittle me in that way. I was very wrong. I had a lot of wrong. I was also wrong because I believed that I did not do a midseason one a year ago. And that's mashed potato brain over here, just completely forgetting that. So no, I don't have a Penn State Clemson national championship game anymore. Just so wrong on all of those. To get to what you have, I think this is actually a very likely Final Four. And I've talked about Indiana in what they do. They're really good on the defensive side of the ball. And I know the offense gets a lot of the conversation because Mendoza is playing lights out and they've got a couple wide receivers who are great. The whole deal. That defense is legit. And their DC was actually a GA, Bryant Haynes at Ohio State when I was playing. So I've known him for a very long time. He's always intelligent, like great coach, very fundamental. I think they have what it takes. And watching their defensive line, their front seven really control what they Oregon did to them is enough for me to see. It's the same reason I think Texas Tech can make it in there. This is a team who's really good on the lines of scrimmage. And I know everybody's like, oh, it's the Big 12. And like, who have they really played? I don't care because they're hurting people. Like it's not very close. When they played Utah, they embarrassed Utah up front. They took the toughness to that team. And that was like the big bad bully in that conference. Some of the other teams that I like right now, I don't trust Alabama because I don't trust their line play. I think Ty Simpson's phenomenal. I don't like their offensive line or their defensive line right now. Ole Miss, their defense is a sieve. Like I don't know what you want me to do with that. So I think because of the way that I believe teams need to win, I wouldn't be shocked if we got a Final Four like this because all those teams are built well in the trenches.
Right. And that's where I think I am on some of these SEC teams. I wrote about it, my piece on NBCsports.com that ran with this, is that there's a lot of good teams. There's not an elite team like the best Saban Alabama teams or the best Kirby Smart Georgia teams. Like all of these teams have flaws. I think they're going to beat up on each other. There's going to be a lot of losses that go around in there. And then you come into a postseason where, again, like a Texas Tech, they may not be challenged very much between now and the time the playoff starts. They may be healthy. They may be ready. They may be fresh. Same thing with Miami. Like these are teams emerging out of conferences where there looks like there's a gap. And I think that's going to position them well for the later stages. By the way, Ohio State and the way that they have been playing, clearly Ryan Day is keeping in mind what it took to get through all those games last year. And they're not going for style points. They're not doing all these other things that you've got to. They're just taking care of business so that they can be best positioned to go on that run in December into January. So that's another reason why I trust them. But with Indiana, I talked to Curt Cignetti this week after the win against Oregon, and first off, he's just like an encyclopedia. Like he's going through every play of the game, like every pivotal moment.
It's so crazy, isn't it?
He's such a football nerd. But he was talking about how last year when they lost to Ohio State and then Notre Dame, those were bad losses, bad performances. And like, he's like, those are facts. So he understood why people like kind of still doubt it. Right. And he doesn't think about this, right? Like, he talks about when he goes and has his outlandish comments, like there's a purpose for them. He hasn't needed to do that this year. It's not like he needs to puff his chest out. Like they're playing the way that they need to. So he's just saying like he reinforces to me this week, the decisive way they beat Illinois, going and winning at Iowa after Fernando Mendoza has his first pick, winning at Oregon against a really good team, really talented team, the way that they did. Like
nobody goes in there and wins, by the way.
And with the defensive front controlling that game. And we were talking about Dante Moore for the Heisman, right? Coming into that game. So he's just like, they're all kind of stacking on each other and they're showing a resiliency and a toughness and a level of preparation that I think he really likes. And now they are not going to face a ranked opponent the rest of the way, right? So,
I mean, good for Sig, honestly. But the level of preparation that you just mentioned, like for folks who get into like breaking down tape and all 22s and that kind of stuff, it's something that you can see, right? Like those guys are rarely in a position where they're not at an advantage offensively or defensively because they're so well prepared. And I think back to my time as a player, I was on some very good teams. I also mentioned off the top of the show, we lost some games in some really tough spots. And the difference when we won them was the preparation, how dialed in we were and how seriously we took that. And it's something you have to have in the sport. And it's difficult when you got guys now who are maybe worried about what appearances they have to do and social media posts they got to get up. And it's always been a thing with 18 to 22-year-olds of, my girlfriend sent me a text I didn't like, and how is that going to affect my day at practice? But they have done a really good job of keeping the focus exactly where it needs to be.
And I think that's what he really likes about the team, the mindset. They don't flinch. We've seen Fernando Mendoza throw a bad pick and respond really well to it in game. I mean, like the mental ability of this team is something else that I really, really like. We're not going to preview their game against Michigan State. We'll have it. We'll have the pregame. We'll be on Peacock with that one. And it's another test for them to kind of like put something in the rearview mirror. Sig was like, you just throw away the rearview mirror and you got to keep just moving forward with the season that they're having. So we'll get into that on Peacock over the weekend. You can see Joshua and I both have our takes there. It is time for Imagine That, presented by Xfinity. This is the part of the show where we kind of crystal ball something. What would it look like if something happens this weekend? What would the fallout be? Joshua, why don't you go first here?
Yeah, let me paint you a picture real quick. So USC goes on the road and beats Notre Dame soundly. This one is intriguing for both sides of it. I think if USC can do that, then we're going to believe what we saw last weekend when they played Michigan and say that this is a team that can legitimately make a push for the college football playoff. And there are a lot of reasons to believe that they can. I think their defense plays better fundamentally. I don't know if they're that much better, but also with the offense that they have, like, they're going to score a lot of points. They do exactly what they need to do based off of what the defense is dictating. And then there's the Notre Dame side of this where it feels like they would likely be out of the college football playoff. It would take extreme amounts of chaos for them to even work their way back into that conversation, not having beat any of the good teams on their schedule. Then there's a question about the teams that beat Notre Dame of what does that mean for them? I think particularly Miami, looking at what they have down the stretch, which is not a lot. And then for A&M, a team that could have a blemish or two, you would like to say that you beat a really good Notre Dame team in that case, but maybe you can't get to say that anymore. And then to circle it back, I like to connect dots here. There are some people on the internet, some people with microphones and big platforms that said that Marcus Freeman is a target for the Penn State job. If you lost to the only ranked teams that you played all year long, do people still feel like he would be the guy for the job there? So I feel like there's a lot hinging on this game here. I'm excited that we get to have it. I think it's going to be a phenomenal one, but I just wanted to imagine that quickly.
We'll get into that one for a full game preview a little bit later, but I will just point out 9.5 points Notre Dame is favored by, which is crazy. So this is like really, you'd have to really imagine this. We really have to paint that picture because Vegas doesn't think that USC is going to win this game.
Well, Vegas has been wrong.
Vegas has been wrong. Okay, here's the picture I'm going to paint for you. Already did Billy Napier a couple weeks ago. He's just living on the hot seat. It's been like 2 years straight of him living on the hot seat. So I was a little bit wrong, but I think that one's still coming. I think there's still going to be a coaching change there at Florida.
Yeah.
I'm going to paint this picture. It's a tough one because I know we both really like Luke Fickell.
Why are you painting pictures of guys getting fired, Nicole?
Well, I'm painting a picture of a potential likely outcome on the field, and that is Ohio State crushing Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Iowa just crushed Wisconsin.
37 zip.
37 zip with an offense that we're never sure about. This is Ohio State. Julian saying, Jeremiah Smith, both on the Heisman odds list. You got the best defense in the country. They're so good in the red zone. If Wisconsin can get to the red zone, they'll probably get shut down. If you are making a decision at Wisconsin, you are looking at Luke Fickell's tenure, and this is another big game where they've always fallen short. You're looking at potentially a 2-win season because you look at the schedule the rest of the way. You've got Oregon on deck. After this, that one could be so ugly as well. I know it's a $25 million buyout. That's a lot of money at a place like Wisconsin, but doesn't that look a little different now after Penn State being willing to spend to buy out James Franklin for $45 million? And listen, there's an offset, and he gets another job. It'll come out of that. They can pay it over, between now and 2031. It's not like
there's still going to be over $50 million making that move, by the way, even with the offset.
Oh yeah, and you're going to have to hire a whole new staff. No, it's going to be an incredibly expensive change for Penn State. I think it makes it really hard for Wisconsin not to make a change, even with a $25 million buyout. Like, I didn't feel this way a few weeks ago. I thought the buyout and just, okay, year one of a new offensive coordinator, but there have been some lifeless performances. The way they lost to Maryland, the way they lost to Iowa, and now you're hitting these are the heavy hitters of your schedule. I just worry that you make a change, that Luke Fickell, that there's another midseason change coming and that it's coming in Madison soon.
Don't make me become a journalist in this moment. I got a lot of people over there that I really care about, but this is what it feels like it's going toward. And it's a super unfortunate thing, because I think when you and I saw that he was getting hired there at Wisconsin, we were like, this is going to be great. He's going to be great there. And they have had issue after issue, and some of it self-inflicted with trying to overhaul the offense and maybe some hiring that didn't go well. Some of it just the universe had something to say about his tenure there, where he hasn't had a quarterback that's been healthy, and they've dealt with some other injuries. But I mean, if they're going to make the change, it feels like this would be the time. That stretch is absolutely brutal. To your point, it certainly doesn't feel like there's a lot of optimism about how this thing is going to end this season in particular. And it would be one of the more shocking tenures to me, having played for Luke and knowing him personally and some of the people over there. They are much better than the results that they're getting, but you're graded on the results and they're not good.
All right, let me give you their remaining schedule here. So they're hosting number 1 team in the country, Ohio State. Then they go at Oregon. Then there's a bye.
Right.
So this is a stretch, by the way. Like November 1st, they're off. They're off Halloween weekend. So if you're looking at potential changes, then Washington at Indiana.
Who should be ranked.
Washington should be ranked. So they play Washington, at Indiana, home versus Illinois, and then at Minnesota.
Jesus.
Is there a win there? That's the question. That's the problem. If it's a 2-win season.
I mean, the only one that feels like it would be winnable would be Minnesota, and not to disparage them. And that's a rivalry game. And like, I love PJ and think he's a great coach. Like, that's the one that you would be like, okay, maybe, but Illinois is playing really good ball this year. Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State. Oh my God. Illinois.
Just saying. That was Imagine That presented by Xfinity. Let's just mentally prepare ourselves for that situation.
That schedule for that program, no favors.
Really, really rough timing to have that schedule. And of course, Alabama on the schedule too.
Yikes.
Okay, it is time for the walkthrough. We're going to preview 3 of the biggest games of the weekend. They're really interesting, actually. And then we'll get to our underdog picks afterwards. There's a lot of ranked unranked in the SEC this weekend because a lot of SEC teams are ranked. So that's part of it. So we're going to pick 2 games out of that conference, and then we'll get to our game, USC Notre Dame. Let's start with Ole Miss and Georgia. Georgia favored by 7.5 points here. These are my 2 questions, Joshua. One,
you can see me clapping if you're watching on YouTube.
What are you clapping for? Timeout?
Well, I'm clapping for Kirby.
Oh, you're trying to call a timeout, but it's really a clap, but it looks like a timeout.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good job, Kirby. Let me give you the 2 questions. I want answers for them. 1, is Ole Miss for real? And
no.
2, can Georgia's defense show up in the first half?
All right. So to answer the Ole Miss question, I think you and I have both looked at them with a little bit of a side eye. And I know you took some heat maybe from some Ole Miss fans for how you were ranking them in your AP poll.
Did.
I think it's justified. And after watching what they did a weekend ago, and people could say it was a look ahead spot, the team that they played is no good, period. So no, I don't think they're for real. I think they have a real issue on their defensive side of the ball, which is like a typical Lane Kiffin thing to do. And so I just have questions. Now, for the Georgia part, can second half Georgia play a whole game? I'm not sure that they can, but I don't know how much it matters because the second half version of that team is really good, and they're very comfortable in these tight games. It doesn't feel like a team that's going to figure out how to run away. And I think that they have some glaring issues offensively. I think Gunnar Stockton's fine. He's not great. That affects the pass game and the run game. And then on defense, they're just not a good pressure team. So this is like an odd matchup because, interestingly enough, I think there can be a lot of points in here because Ole Miss has a really good offense and their defense is bad. So I think Georgia moves it. But I don't think either team separates in this football game because of the fact that I don't think Georgia's a separator, and I don't think Ole Miss is going to get the stops to separate.
I want to give you a couple of stats. Before facing Kentucky at home, Georgia had trailed in its past 8 matchups against Power 4 opponents. 6 of those teams scored first. Last season, for the whole season, Georgia averaged just 2.3 points for first quarter and 5.7 5.7 points per first half in losses to Alabama, Ole Miss, and Notre Dame which they played in the CFP. Kirby Smart was asked about these slow starts and this, like the second half Georgia phenomenon after the loss to Alabama, which you remember Alabama did not score in the second half and still won the game. Kirby Smart said, I don't have an explanation for it. Not starting well on defense. The two better opponents we played, we did not execute well in the first. It's really frustrating because we show we can in the second half. That is a really interesting just storyline to follow here with Georgia and the way that they are, what their ceiling is, but also what their floor is and how big the hole is that they're digging themselves to then climb out of. Do you want to make a pick on this game, Joshua?
Yeah, I think Georgia wins it because I do think Ole Miss is a fraud, but I don't think that they cover the 7.5 because I said I just don't know if anybody's really separating here. But I think Georgia's gonna beat them up. I think they're gonna be the more sound team, and they're eventually gonna get the win.
I'm going to take Georgia to cover and kind of make a statement about being taken seriously in the SEC again.
I like that.
Let's talk about the third Saturday in October, Tennessee versus Alabama. Tied, favored by 8.5 points. Interesting, with how well they've been playing the last couple of weeks. This is an interesting one because they had Damian Harris, the former Alabama running back, on the radio earlier this week. And he said that this was always a bigger rivalry game than the Iron Bowl, that this was always their actual biggest rival, which is tough because they usually beat Tennessee and they did not always beat Auburn.
That's where I think he's trying to throw a little bit of shade here to Auburn people specifically and Tennessee a little bit, because it's like, yeah, we always beat you because you're our biggest rival. And then for the Auburn people, it's like your little brother and you're always going to be. And I think it's a little bit of a mind game here, but I absolutely love it.
Probably. It's also like that Mad Men meme where it's like, I don't even think about you. You know, it's like 100%. You're just like fixated on me. So this one should be a fun one. I mean, it should be a lot of points in this one, like you were just talking about with Georgia and Ole Miss, because Tennessee's defense will allow it. And then Alabama, it's been hit or miss. They haven't really seen a passing attack like Tennessee's, one of the best in the SEC and the country. And then again, you know, what happens with pass defense that has been pretty good. It's averaging less than 136 yards per game, more interceptions than touchdowns allowed. So that will be an interesting matchup, you know, in the secondary and on the back end of this defense for Alabama. Meanwhile, you have the questions you have about the offensive line for Alabama. And then also, like, Ryan Williams hasn't been involved. He was a non-factor against Missouri. And listen, like Jeremy Bernard, there's other guys that Ty Simpson clearly likes to throw the ball to, but that's a little bit of a question mark. And again, I just wonder, hey, which one's going to hold true? Alabama's defense has been good against the pass, or Tennessee's one of the best passing offenses you're going to play, and that's going to expose some things in Alabama's defense.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really tough one. And I'll say this about the Tennessee offense. The thing that makes them really difficult to defend is they run routes based off of defensive leverage. So if you're in a zone, they will run away from where the zone defenders are. So that's sitting in the soft spots. It's stopping routes that maybe are supposed to go deep, things like that. And then if you're in man-to-man, they just try to run by you. Like they just try to run really good routes and get guys open that way. So I'm very curious what Alabama's plan is going to be into this one. To your point, like for Tennessee, can they still have that offense that they need? I think the biggest key for Tennessee is, can you get pressure on Ty Simpson? I think he's playing as well as anybody, but we have seen now that maybe he's a guy that you can touch because the offensive line has been up and down for Alabama. And also he loves to make plays, and he might hold the ball long enough for you to be able to hit him. And if you hit him, you might get the ball out. You and I talked about that last week. So this one certainly to me is interesting. Overall, I think Alabama is the better team. I think they're really good, even with the reservations that I have about them. And for Tennessee, I feel like they've played too close with teams that I don't really know about, haven't necessarily capitalized on the opportunities. So I feel very confident about Alabama getting this win, and I feel confident about them covering in this game.
I picked Ty Simpson as my midseason Heisman winner. So I'm with you. He's, Kirby Smart said it a few weeks ago that he was like the hottest quarterback in the country. I think that's stuck in my mind with the way he's played and just some of the delivery of some of these passes into really tight windows. He's just been incredible. So I'm with you on picking Alabama. I'm going to say that it's going to be closer than 8.5 points. So I'm going to take Tennessee to cover because it feels like we could end up in a Tennessee-Georgia situation, but part two. And that this could be a little bit of a wild one that comes down to a couple final plays or maybe even goes to overtime. So I am going to take Tennessee plus 8.5 there. Time for our game. USC Notre Dame, massive game in South Bend. USC coming off of their biggest win, maybe most statement win since joining the Big Ten with the win over Michigan, best win in a couple of years for sure. And you could tell with the way that Lincoln Riley talked afterwards about the toughness and the physicality that the conversation we all were having in the week leading into that game was very much top of mind for USC. That in order to show that they can play with and beat the best teams in the country, they need to be really good at the line of scrimmage. That's been a problem for them. It's been a problem since they joined the Big Ten. That we had that whole conversation about the toughness and the physicality of the Big Ten Conference. I think it meant a lot for them to beat Michigan, a team that is usually built that way and has won a national championship recently by bullying people at the line of scrimmage. So USC beats Michigan and comes into this game squarely in the college football playoff conversation as a one-loss Big Ten team. Somehow they're 9.5-point underdogs to Notre Dame. 2-loss Notre Dame. We've talked a lot about it all season. Those 2 losses coming to some of the best teams in the country so far in Miami and Texas A&M. They, I think, need to win out to be in the college football playoff, although there are going to be a lot of losses around. But this game features 2 really exciting offenses. CJ Carr, the running backs on the Notre Dame side, and of course, Jaden Mayava and Makai Lemon and everyone on the USC side, even though they've had injuries, the offensive line and the running back group, still explosive, still Lincoln Riley offense, which is going to put a lot of pressure on 2 defenses that really need a big day. Like we've talked about, the growth, if there has been some for Notre Dame since the first couple of weeks, Chris Ash. And then on the USC side, it's been a multi-year effort to get that defensive side of the ball in shape to be able to win games like this. So really fascinating one and a lot of star players and star power in this game.
It's exactly what this rivalry is supposed to feel like. So I'm excited that it has that big feel. This line to me is so strange, and maybe it's about USC having the long travel and Lincoln Riley's track record with that or something different, because I look at this in terms of the way that the game is played, and I just don't see Notre Dame as being able to pull away like this, because I don't think the stops are going to be there for them. Like we talked about their defense improving, and I think part of it is just who they've played. I looked on tape, and when they played NC State, their biggest plays came when they decided that they wanted to blitz, and they don't get home when they do that. And you got guys in the secondary that are running wide open for various reasons, and USC has the ability to hurt you with that. If I'm Notre Dame, after watching the way that Michigan played the USC last week, I'm not calling a single damn blitz all game long. It was the thing that killed Michigan. They were overly aggressive. They were trying to run through gaps. They got caught on misdirection. They got caught on screens, and if they didn't get home, they were getting hit down the field. I literally wouldn't do it if I was Notre Dame. But I know Marcus Freeman, and I know who he wants to be, and he wants to hit quarterbacks, and he likes being aggressive. And I think because of that, USC is going to have enough offense to keep this one close. I think Notre Dame's a better team. I like them to win this one at home, but 9.5 is a line I'm staying the hell away from.
I'm so confused by this line as well. I do think it has to do with Lincoln Riley on the road. Not being great, but yeah, it's shocking to me, especially with a Notre Dame team with those issues on the defensive side of the ball that we have seen them get exposed and lose games because of. I mean, we saw Texas A&M's offense, which has been inconsistent at times and up and down, be super explosive and could have even
up and down the field.
They could have done worse to Notre Dame if they'd hit some of those plays. So that's what I worry about. I mean, Jaden Mav has been really, really good this year. I talked to Lincoln Riley about him, and he was just saying, last year he got the starting job like midway through the season. He's just processing and making better decisions this year. And so it all looks so much easier. And certainly his skill set, I know you believe that it like really fits into what Lincoln Riley likes to do offensively. He and I were talking, like the first time I talked to Lincoln, he was the offensive coordinator at East Carolina. So he's had like a lot of different coaches or different quarterbacks over the years, different skill sets to play into. But yeah, Mayaba's been awesome. And he thinks that like they really learned something about themselves as a team with the resiliency with all the injuries. And the way that they beat Michigan. He said looking back, like they should have been able to pull away earlier, which was true.
They had that fumble when early in the game.
That was it.
If they would have scored there, I think it would have been a very different game.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think like there's just an energy around that program and kind of the state of the USC program that we haven't seen in a few years. And it's been a frustrating stretch, right? Like, I mean, they had to spend a lot of money on a bunch of defensive coaches who brought a lot of, just fundamentals and schemes and all sorts of stuff to try to fix this. And they had to get better personnel. There was a lot that needed to change in Lincoln Riley's program and system. And it just looks more like the USC you want to see. And so I'm with you. I think Notre Dame wins, but it's close. So I would take USC with the points as well. In real life, though, I don't think I would bet this game because that's such a strange line.
I agree with that. I would stay away from this one.
Let's go to our underdog picks. I am 4-3 on the season. You are 3-4 on the season with the asterisks for Auburn. So don't worry. I will always acknowledge it.
They got jobbed again.
They're Auburn versus SEC officiating might be the actual best rivalry of the season.
I agree.
Joshua, give me your underdog pick.
I'm going with Maryland. They're a 3.5-point underdog. They're going on the road to play UCLA, college football playoff bound UCLA. I mean, like a team who's been really good over the last 2 weeks.
Hey, Joshua, you've been talking about a 4-loss team making the playoff. Is it UCLA?
That's who I've been talking about secretly.
Okay.
I think a little bit of the magic has to run out at some point, or maybe this is UCLA. I don't know, but it feels like the shoe is going to drop at some point. But also this is a big vibes pick. I've learned that tailing Maryland to cover has been a really good play this year. They have done a great job of covering the spread. So I'm rolling off of the vibes.
Yeah, until Maryland lets us down, like one of us should take them every single week.
I'm going to.
Because they're like a lock to cover so far this year. Okay, I'm going to stay in the Big Ten as well. I'm going to take Purdue +3 at Northwestern. This is a pick that was inspired by my buddy Kevin Fishbane, Northwestern grad, who covers the Chicago Bears. He said, Nicole, have you recorded your podcast yet? Because if not, here is your underdog pick. Northwestern always has letdowns after big games like they just had that win over Penn State. You also know, like, this feeds perfect. Like, I didn't even need to be convinced because, like, I really like Barry Odom and Purdue, and I know that they don't have the personnel that they're going to need to, like, contend against the big boys in the Big Ten this year. But I definitely do think that they could beat Northwestern. So I actually think, not just +3, but, like, I think they can win this game. Because Barry Odom likes his quarterback. They've got some. They're definitely a lot better than last year. Devin Mockbee, more like the Devin Mockbee we saw a few years ago. And I am definitely worried about that letdown for Northwestern, a team that I only thought was going to win maybe one Big Ten game all season anyway. So I think I already had this one chalked up to a loss to Purdue. So I'm taking the Boilermakers +3.
I'm here for that pick for a lot of the reasons that you said. I think Purdue's a better team than what their record states right now. Like if you watch them, they're actually playing really solid ball. And Northwestern is playing solid ball too, but I think I like Purdue better just generally. Like I think I like what they do better.
Yeah, and again, letdown opportunity here for Northwestern coming off the Penn State win.
You guys should see us in the game screening room while our underdog picks are playing. It's like the most involved that we are in any football game all weekend long. And it's usually a matchup like Purdue at Northwestern, which is so much fun.
Some of us have had their picks hit by like half a point. So yes, it can get a little dicey. It'll get a little dicey. We'll see how they do. And maybe some weeks we should make it be like a super dog pick where it's like a double digit. Should we do that?
I'm actually very, very here for that. Like that would be a lot of fun. Scouring to find the one that we think could do it.
Maybe we should do that for the second half of the season. We'll talk to our producer, Courtney. I feel like she can be convinced. We'll do that. We will be back for Rushing the Field, as we always are, Saturday nights. We record during the last half of the primetime games, and we get you set if you're going to catch up over coffee on Sundays. It's a lot of fun. We had some really important conversations about James Franklin that didn't have the longest shelf life because Penn State did need to move on, but we explained why in that pod. So always trying to get you the most important conversations and takeaways from the weekend that was. We will get the second half of the season started this Saturday night. So subscribe, rate, review us, hang tight on the Rushing the Field pod. He's Joshua Perry. I'm Nicole Auerbach. This is Rushing the Field presented by Xfinity, and we'll see you over the weekend.